There is something deeply troubling and paradoxically touching in the spectacle of a man struggling against his own feelings. You sense it, that tension in the air, that contradictory energy, that bewildering mixture of closeness and distance. You wonder, am I imagining this? Why does he act this way if he feels what I think he feels? Carl Jung, in his profound exploration of the masculine psyche, identified a fascinating phenomenon. Men often fight their deepest feelings with a ferocity that seems irrational to outside observers. But for Jung, this struggle was not a mystery. It was a logical manifestation of masculine psychology, shadow wounds, and the conflict between authentic desire and ego defenses. Contrary to popular belief, when a man fights his feelings for you, it's generally not because he doesn't want you. It's often the opposite. His feelings are so intense, so threatening to his sense of control, so potentially transformative, that he must fight them to maintain his current psychological balance. Today, we'll explore 8 revealing signs that a man is at war with his own feelings for you. These signs are rooted in Jungian understanding of the masculine psyche, defense mechanisms, and the complex dynamics between vulnerability and the desire for control. Understanding these signs won't necessarily give you the power to change the situation, but it will give you the clarity you need to make your own informed decisions about how to respond. Sign 1. Intense closeness, followed by inexplicable distance. The approach-avoidance pattern. The first and perhaps most bewildering sign is what Jung would call the approach-avoidance dynamic, a pattern where the man oscillates between moments of intense intimacy and periods of inexplicable withdrawal. How this manifests. One evening, you have a deep conversation that lasts for hours. He opens up. You open up. The energy between you is electric and intimate. You part ways feeling closer than ever. Then, inexplicably, he becomes distant. He doesn't respond to messages for days. When you finally see him, he acts as if that intimacy never happened. The psychology behind it. Jung understood that emotional intimacy triggers deep fears in many men. Fear of losing control, fear of being overwhelmed, fear of becoming dependent. When a man opens up and feels that intimacy, his psychological alarm system is triggered. He panics. He pulls back. He creates distance to regain his sense of control and autonomy. This isn't calculated. It isn't conscious. It's an automatic defense reaction. The deeper the intimacy was, the more pronounced the withdrawal will be. It's as if his psyche is saying, "That was too close. That was dangerous. I must protect myself." Why, this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. If his feelings weren't intense, he wouldn't need to withdraw. It's the very intensity of what he feels that triggers the defense. A man who feels nothing doesn't show this oscillation pattern. He simply remains at a comfortable and constant distance. What Jung would say, this oscillation reflects the conflict between the authentic self that desires connection and the defensive ego that fears vulnerability. It's a dance between two aspects of himself, one that wants to approach, the other that wants to protect. How to distinguish this from simple ambivalence? It's crucial to distinguish this pattern from someone who is simply ambivalent or using you for attention. In the case of authentic ambivalence, the man generally doesn't show the depth of intimacy before withdrawal. He remains relatively superficial, even in close moments. When he's fighting his feelings, the moments of intimacy are remarkably deep, authentic, vulnerable. Then the withdrawal is equally remarkable. It's the intensity of both extremes that reveals there's a real internal battle. Sign 2. Hypervigilance about your life while pretending indifference camouflaged observation. A subtle but revealing sign is when a man pays obsessive attention to your life while pretending not to be particularly interested. How this manifests. He knows details about your life that you don't remember sharing. He makes comments that reveal he's looked at your social media in depth. He knows who you were with, where you were, what you did. But when you mention it, he acts like it was a coincidence or minimizes his interest. He asks seemingly casual but very specific questions about other men in your life. Who was that person in the photo? How was that dinner with your colleague? He frames these questions as casual conversation, but the energy behind them betrays a much deeper interest. The psychology behind it. Jung spoke of unconscious fascination. When something captivates our attention, despite our conscious efforts to ignore it. When a man fights his feelings, his unconscious remains fixated on you, even if his conscious ego tries to maintain distance. This hypervigilance is a form of what Jung would call libidinal preoccupation. His psychic energy is invested in you, whether he consciously wants it to be or not. He can't help but follow your life. Notice details, care about what's happening with you. Why this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. If he were truly indifferent, he wouldn't pay this attention. If he were comfortable with his feelings, he wouldn't feel the need to hide his interest. It's the combination of intense attention and denial that reveals the internal conflict. The revealing body language. Observe how his body reacts when you enter a room, even if he pretends not to have noticed you. Jung understood that the body doesn't lie. It orients toward what attracts us. His eyes find you, even when he's trying not to look. His body turns toward you, even when he's talking to someone else. Jealousy. Disguised as concern. A particularly revealing aspect of this sign is when he shows jealousy but frames it as something else. Concern for your well-being, objective observations, brotherly advice. I don't think that guy is good for you, he says, pretending to come from a place of platonic concern when really he can't stand the idea of you with someone else. Sign 3. Overcompensation with other women in your presence. The theater of indifference. A particularly painful but revealing sign is when a man flirts ostentatiously or talks excessively about other women specifically in your presence. How this manifests, one-on-one or in situations where you're not there, he's different. But when you're present, suddenly he mentions other women he finds attractive, dates he's had, or visibly flirts with others while making sure you see. The energy is strange. It's not natural. It's performative. What betrays him is that the attention isn't really on the other woman. It's on your reaction. He checks if you notice, how you react, if it bothers you. His eyes constantly return to you even while he's talking to or about someone else. The psychology behind it. Jung would understand this as reaction formation, a defense mechanism where we act opposite to what we really feel. The man fears that his true feelings are too visible, so he creates an elaborate display of interest elsewhere. It's also an attempt to regain power in a situation where he feels vulnerable. His feelings for you make him feel exposed, without control. By demonstrating that he has other options, that he's not affected by you, he tries to reclaim that feeling of control. Why this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. A truly indifferent man wouldn't feel the need to prove his indifference. This performance reveals there's something to hide. Moreover, the timing is revealing. Why do these demonstrations happen specifically when you're present? The unconscious cruelty. Jung spoke of how the shadow often contains cruelty that we don't consciously recognize. This man may not realize how hurtful this behavior is because he's so focused on his own defense. He's fighting his feelings so intensely that he doesn't see the collateral damage. The emotional test. Sometimes this behavior also serves as an unconscious test. He wants to see if you care. If he provokes jealousy in you, it confirms that you also have feelings, which paradoxically makes the situation even more frightening for him. It's a vicious cycle of defenses that create more anxiety. Sign 4. The intense gaze. He quickly looks away from the eyes that cannot lie. Jung said that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and nowhere is this more true than in this particular sign. How this manifests. You catch him looking at you, not a casual glance, but a deep, intense, almost vulnerable gaze. Your eyes meet, and for a fraction of a second, you see everything. The desire, the tenderness, the conflict. Then, almost immediately, he looks away as if he's been burned. He becomes busy with something else, starts a conversation with someone, or pretends he was looking at something behind you. What makes this sign particularly revealing is the quality of the gaze. It's not a look of superficial appreciation. It's a gaze that seems to study you, memorize you, try to understand something. It's a look charged with unspoken emotion, the psychology behind it. The eyes reveal what the mouth silences. When a man fights his feelings, his conscious control can manage his words, his behavior, his actions. But in those unguarded moments, his eyes tell the truth. Jung spoke of projection, how we project onto others what we cannot recognize in ourselves. In these moments of intense gaze, the projections momentarily fall, and you see his real desire, his real fascination. Then the ego regains control. The defenses reactivate, and he must break that contact. Why this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. If he felt neutral toward you, his gaze would be neutral. If he were comfortable with his attraction, he wouldn't look away so abruptly. It's the combination of intensity and quick aversion that reveals the conflict. The physiology of desire. Jung understood that emotions have physical manifestations. Pupil dilation, gaze fixation, relaxation of muscles around the eyes. These are involuntary responses to attraction and affection. He can't control these physiological responses, even if he controls his behavior. The moments when defenses fall. These gazes often happen in particular moments, when you're not looking directly, when you're absorbed in something else, when he thinks no one notices. In these moments, his defenses relax, and his true desire to look at you, to drink in your presence, manifests. Or inversely, these gazes happen in moments of accidental intimacy, when you laugh together, when you share a moment of complicity, when the usual distance momentarily diminishes. In these moments, his feelings rise to the surface before he can push them back down. Sign 5. Excessive involvement in your well-being. The protector who pretends neutrality. A subtle but deeply revealing sign is when a man shows a level of concern and involvement in your life that far exceeds what would be appropriate for the level of relationship he claims to have with you. How this manifests. He remembers you had an important interview and sends you a message to see how it went. He notices when you seem tired or stressed and asks what's wrong. He offers help with things without you having to ask, fixing something, driving you somewhere, solving a problem. When something difficult happens in your life, he's there, perhaps not in an obvious way, but his presence and support are constant. He worries about your safety, your health, your happiness in a way that seems disproportionate for someone who claims to be just a friend or acquaintance. The psychology behind it. Jung spoke of the protective instinct as being deeply anchored in the masculine psyche, particularly toward those for whom we have deep feelings. When a man is attracted to you at the soul level, not just physically, his instinct to care for you activates. But because he's fighting his feelings, he can't frame this concern as romantic. So he disguises it. He's just helpful. He'd do the same for anyone. It's just his personality. But observe, does he really do the same for everyone? Or do you receive a unique level of attention and care? Why, this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. A man who feels nothing special doesn't invest this way. The emotional and practical involvement in your well-being requires energy, attention, care, resources we don't spend without reason. What makes this particularly revealing is the contrast between the level of care and the label he puts on the relationship. If you're just friends or just acquaintances, why this level of investment? The dissonance reveals that his real feelings far exceed what he's willing to admit. The hidden anxiety. Observe his anxiety when you're in difficulty or danger. A man fighting his feelings often shows disproportionate concern. He can't completely hide how much he cares. This anxiety betrays him. The unacknowledged sacrifice. Also notice the sacrifices he makes for you. His time, his energy, his plans, while minimizing or not acknowledging these sacrifices. It was nothing, he says, when in fact it was something significant. This minimization is a defense against acknowledging how much he really cares. Sign 6. Deep conversations. He later denies emotional intimacy, followed by selective amnesia. This sign is particularly confusing and can make you doubt your own perception of reality. How this manifests. You have a deep conversation with him, perhaps late at night, perhaps in a moment of mutual vulnerability. He shares things about himself that he doesn't normally share. You share too. There's a palpable emotional intimacy, a connection that feels meaningful. Then, when you see him again and perhaps reference that conversation or what he shared, he acts like it wasn't a big deal. Or worse, he minimizes what he said, claims he was joking, or quickly changes the subject. It's as if that intimacy never existed. The psychology behind it. Jung would call this secondary repression. After opening up in a moment of vulnerability, the ego regains control and tries to undo that exposure. The man wakes up, metaphorically, and realizes he revealed too much. His response is to deny, minimize, or reframe what happened. It's also a form of what modern psychologists call emotional gaslighting, though often it's not intentional or malicious. He's not trying to consciously manipulate you. He's trying to protect himself from the vulnerability he showed. But the effect is that you begin to doubt your perception of what happened. Why this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. If he felt nothing significant, these conversations wouldn't need to be denied or minimized. It's precisely because they revealed too much of his true feelings that he must undo them in his head and in your subsequent interactions. The vulnerability hangover. What often happens is that after the moment of openness, he feels what Brené Brown would call a vulnerability hangover, a feeling of regret and exposure. He showed too much, revealed too much, and now he must repair the damage to its defense. The pattern of revelation withdrawal. This pattern can repeat again and again, moments of real connection followed by denial or minimization. Each time, you wonder if you imagined the intimacy. But no, it was real. It's his response to that intimacy that's the defense, not the intimacy itself. Sign 7. Body tension in your presence. The body that reveals inner conflict. Jung understood that the body doesn't lie. It reveals our unconscious truths even when our conscious mind tries to hide them. How this manifests. In your presence, his body language shows a particular tension, rigidity in the shoulders, a clenched jaw, a stiffer posture. It's as if he's holding himself on guard, ready to defend against something. At the same time, there are moments when his body seeks you out despite himself. He leans toward you when you speak. He finds reasons to reduce physical distance. His body orients toward you even when his head is turned elsewhere. It's this combination of tension and attraction that reveals the conflict. Notice also how he reacts to accidental physical contact, a brush of hands, a moment when you have to pass close to him in a tight space. There's a palpable electricity, a disproportionate reaction to contact that should be neutral. He may withdraw quickly or, inversely, remain motionless as if the contact has frozen him. The psychology behind it, the nervous system reacts to attraction and desire physiologically. When a man fights these feelings, his body experiences a conflict. One part wants to approach, the other wants to maintain distance. This internal battle manifests as physical tension. Jung spoke of somatic conversion, how psychological conflicts manifest in the body. What this man cannot express in words, his body shouts in its tension, in its involuntary reactions, in the way he physically orbits you while trying to maintain distance. Why this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. An indifferent man is relaxed in your presence. A man comfortable with his attraction may have anticipation, but not this particular tension of conflict. It's the battle between desire and defense that creates this specific body energy. The involuntary signals. Observe his hands. Does he fidget with his fingers, constantly adjust his clothes, look for things to do with his hands? These self-soothing behaviors reveal the nervous anxiety he's trying to manage. Observe his breathing. Does it become more shallow or change rhythm when you get closer? The autonomic nervous system doesn't lie and cannot be consciously controlled. The contrast with other contexts. What makes this sign particularly revealing is the contrast. Observe him in other situations, with other people. Is he relaxed, natural, comfortable? Then observe him with you. The difference in his body language reveals that something different is happening in his nervous system when you're present. Sign 8. Acts of service. He minimizes or denies love. Expressed in actions, denied in words. The final sign, and perhaps the most touching, is when a man expresses his feelings clearly through his actions, while verbally denying their significance. How this manifests. He does things for you, things that take time, effort, thought. He notices what you need before you have to ask. He remembers details you mentioned in passing and acts on them. He finds ways to make your life easier, to support you, to take care of you. But when you acknowledge these actions or express gratitude, he minimizes. It was nothing. I was in the area anyway. Anyone would have done the same. He actively defends against the idea that these actions mean something special. The psychology behind it. Jung understood that men often express love through action rather than words. It's their natural love language. For a man fighting his feelings, actions escape despite his verbal defenses. He can't help but care for you, think of you, act on his desire to make your life better. But verbally acknowledging these actions as significant would force a recognition of his feelings that he's not ready to make. So he creates this strange dissociation between what he does and what he says it means. Why, this is a sign he's fighting his feelings. Actions reveal the truth that words hide. A man who truly doesn't care doesn't make these efforts. The combination of consistent caring actions and verbal denial of their significance reveals the classic conflict of someone fighting what they feel. The revealing consistency. What distinguishes this from general kindness is the consistency and specificity. He doesn't do these things for everyone in the same way. He doesn't do them occasionally or sporadically. There's a pattern, an attention, an investment that suggests you occupy a special place in his mind, even if he can't admit it. The silent sacrifice. Sometimes you only discover later the extent of what he did, how much effort it really took, what personal sacrifice it represented. He doesn't say because acknowledging the sacrifice would also acknowledge how much he cares. So he keeps these things silent, hoping you won't discover the depth of his investment. Understanding to better decide. Clarity isn't always comfortable. We've explored 8 revealing signs that a man is fighting his feelings for you. If you've recognized several or all of these signs in someone's behavior, you now have a clarity you may not have had before. But here's the uncomfortable reality Jung would teach us. Understanding why someone acts this way doesn't necessarily change the situation. A man who fights his feelings does so generally for deep psychological reasons: past wounds, fears of intimacy, need for control, internal conflicts he must resolve himself. You cannot save him from his internal battle. You cannot love someone hard enough for them to stop fighting their own feelings. This work, the work of confronting his fears, integrating his shadows, becoming brave enough for his own vulnerability, that's his work to do. What to do with this knowledge? So, what do you do with this understanding? Here are some Jungian principles. Honor your own worth. A man fighting his feelings sends you a message, even if it's not intentional. I'm not ready to honor you openly. You deserve someone who is ready. Don't diminish yourself by waiting indefinitely for him to resolve his internal conflicts. Recognize it's not personal. His battle isn't about your worth. It's about his own fears and wounds. Don't take his internal struggle as a statement about your desirability or value. Decide consciously instead of reacting unconsciously. Now that you understand what's happening, you can make a conscious choice. Do you want to wait while he works through his issues? Do you want to express directly what you observe and create an opportunity for honesty? Or do you want to move away and protect your own emotional well-being? There's no universal right answer. The answer depends on your specific situation, his potential receptivity, and what your own psyche needs for your growth and well-being. Communicate if you choose to try. If you decide to give honesty an opportunity, you might say something like, I have the feeling there's something unspoken between us, and I'd prefer clarity to ambiguity. If you have feelings you're not ready to explore, I respect that, but I need to know where we stand so I can take care of myself. This approach respects his process while honoring your own needs. It creates an opening without overwhelming pressure. The timing of transformation. Jung would remind us that psychological transformation cannot be forced. It has its own timing. A man fights his feelings until something changes in him. Perhaps he does therapeutic work. Perhaps he reaches a breaking point. Perhaps the pain of denying himself becomes greater than the fear of vulnerability. You cannot control his timing. You can only decide how long you're willing to be in the orbit of this conflict, to live in this ambiguity, to feel this contradictory energy. Why men fight their feelings, the deep roots. To truly understand this phenomenon, we must explore the deep psychological reasons why men fight their feelings. Fear of losing autonomy. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming oneself. For many men, identity is deeply linked to autonomy and control. Falling in love threatens this sense of independent self. Suddenly, someone else has power over their emotional state. This prospect can be terrifying for a man whose entire identity is built around self-mastery. Early attachment wounds. Many men who fight their feelings have histories of insecure attachment in childhood. Perhaps love was conditional, unpredictable, or withdrawn as punishment. These experiences create an unconscious association. Love, I, danger. Even when they consciously desire connection, their nervous system screams danger as soon as intimacy deepens. Cultural conditioning of masculinity. From childhood, many men receive the message that strong emotions are feminine, weak, unacceptable. Men don't cry. Don't be a girl. Control yourself. These messages become internal scripts that create deep shame around emotional vulnerability. Fighting his feelings becomes a way to preserve his perceived masculinity. Past relational trauma. Perhaps he opened his heart before and was devastated. Perhaps he was betrayed, abandoned, or ridiculed for his vulnerability. These experiences create rigid defenses. I will never again allow anyone to have that power over me. His feelings for you awaken the terror of past trauma, fear of not being enough. Jung spoke of the inferiority complex that haunts many men. Deep down, he may believe he's not enough, not successful enough, not masculine enough, not interesting enough. If he acknowledges his feelings and pursues a relationship, he risks you discovering this truth about his insufficiency. Fighting his feelings avoids this risk of revelation and rejection. Desire to control timing. Deep feelings have their own timing. They emerge when they want, not when we rationally decide to be ready. For a man who values control, this emotional spontaneity is destabilizing. He fights his feelings because he shouldn't have them now. Perhaps he's not ready for a relationship. Perhaps the timing is bad. Perhaps he has other priorities. The pain of the observer. It's important to also honor your experience in this situation. Being the object of fought feelings is deeply confusing and often painful. The confusion of mixed signals. You constantly receive contradictory messages. Closeness, then distance. Interest, then indifference. Tenderness, then coldness. This inconsistency is psychologically destabilizing. You begin to doubt your own perception. Am I imagining this? Am I reading too much into his actions? The pain of being almost chosen. There's something particularly painful about being almost chosen, but not quite. You see that he wants you. You feel the connection, but he can't or won't take the step toward acknowledgement and commitment. It's like being suspended in emotional limbo. The temptation to blame yourself. When someone fights their feelings for you, it's tempting to think, if only I were different, desirable enough, special enough, he would stop fighting. But it's not about you. His battle is with himself, with his fears, with his past. Emotional exhaustion. Navigating this dynamic is exhausting. You constantly analyze every interaction, seeking clarity in contradictory signals. You live in uncertainty, never knowing what to expect. Will he be close or distant today? Taking care of yourself in this situation If you find yourself in this situation, here's how to care for your psychological well-being. Maintain your own center. Don't allow his ambivalence to completely destabilize you. Continue your activities, your friendships, your passions. Don't put your life on pause waiting for him to resolve his internal conflict. Establish internal boundaries. You can have compassion for his struggle without indefinitely accepting the behavior that results from that struggle. Decide for yourself, how long am I willing to remain in this ambiguity? What behaviors are acceptable and which are not? Don't become his therapist. It can be tempting to try to help him through his fears, to become the person who heals him. But that's not your role. He needs to do his own work with a real therapist or through his own individuation process. Recognize your own worth independently. Your worth is not determined by whether he can recognize his feelings or not. You are worthy of love, commitment, clarity, whether this particular man can offer it to you or not. Seek support. Talk to trusted friends, a therapist, people who can offer you objective perspective. This situation can create a reality distortion where you lose touch with what is healthy and normal. External support helps you maintain perspective. Consider strategic distance. Sometimes the best thing you can do is create distance. This protects you emotionally and gives him space to feel your absence. Sometimes it's only in absence that someone realizes what they lost by fighting their feelings. When a man stops fighting, it's important to note that men can and do stop fighting their feelings. Change generally happens when he does serious therapeutic work, when he begins to confront his fears, his wounds, his patterns. The need to fight his feelings diminishes. He develops the capacity to tolerate vulnerability. He reaches a breaking point. Sometimes the pain of denying himself becomes unbearable. He realizes that fighting his feelings causes more suffering than the vulnerability of acknowledging them. He loses you and realizes what it means. Sometimes it's only when you leave, when you truly establish boundaries, that he confronts the reality of what he's losing. The threat of loss can catalyze change. He sees a different model. Perhaps he sees other men in healthy, vulnerable relationships. Perhaps a mentor or friend shows him you can be masculine and emotionally open. These models can challenge his limiting beliefs. He matures naturally. With age and experience, many men become more comfortable with emotional vulnerability. What seemed terrifying at 25 may feel natural at 35 or 45. Signs: he's ready to stop fighting. If a man begins to make peace with his feelings, you'll see certain changes. Consistency increases. Instead of the closeness-distance oscillation, he becomes more stable in his presence. He no longer disappears after moments of intimacy. He uses the language of vulnerability. He begins to name what he feels instead of denying it. "I got scared when we became close" is very different from "I don't know what you're talking about." He initiates difficult conversations. Instead of avoiding discussions about feelings and the relationship, he initiates them. He wants to clarify, define, move forward. He takes visible emotional risks. You see him doing things that are clearly uncomfortable for him, expressing affection, making future plans, introducing vulnerability. The effort is visible, and it's precisely this effort that shows his commitment to change. He asks what you need. Instead of being solely focused on managing his own fears, he begins to consider your experience. "I know my behavior has been confusing. What do you need from me?" The difficult reality. Here's the truth Jung would tell us with compassion, but without sentimentality. Not all men who fight their feelings arrive at a place where they can stop fighting, at least not in the timing of your relationship with them. Some men remain stuck in their defenses for years. Some never do the necessary inner work. Some recognize their feelings only after you've left and moved on with your life. This reality isn't cruel. It's simply true. And you must decide, with clarity and compassion for yourself, how much of your precious life you're willing to spend in the orbit of someone else's ambivalence. The invitation to your own individuation. Ironically, being involved with someone who fights their feelings can be an invitation to your own individuation process, your own psychological growth. It invites you to examine your own patterns. Why are you attracted to someone emotionally unavailable? What does this reflect about your own wounds or your own fears of intimacy? It calls you to develop stronger boundaries. Learning to say, "I deserve better than ambiguity," is a powerful act of self-love and growth. It invites you to clarify your values. What's truly important to you in a relationship? What are your non-negotiable needs? This situation can clarify what really matters. It teaches you detachment with compassion. You can have compassion for his struggle without sacrificing yourself on the altar of his growth. It's a delicate but important balance. The final message: choose yourself. If you recognize yourself in what we've explored, if you see these 8 signs clearly in someone's behavior, you now have understanding. You know what's happening. You're not crazy. You're not imagining things. There really is something there, even if he can't or won't acknowledge it. But understanding doesn't obligate you to stay. Compassion for his struggle doesn't obligate you to sacrifice yourself. Love for him doesn't obligate you to abandon yourself. Jung would remind us that your first duty is to your own individuation, your own process of becoming fully yourself. And sometimes, becoming fully yourself means having the courage to walk away from a situation that doesn't serve you, no matter how much you understand why the other person acts that way. You deserve someone who doesn't fight their feelings for you. You deserve someone who sees you, recognizes you, chooses you openly and proudly. You deserve someone whose actions and words are aligned. You deserve clarity, consistency, commitment. Compassion for his battle doesn't require you to remain on the battlefield with him. You can understand why he struggles and choose not to live in the chaos of that struggle. These 2 things can be true simultaneously. Hope and reality balanced. There is hope. Men can and do the work to stop fighting their feelings. Transformations happen. Breakthroughs arrive. Sometimes the story has a happy ending, where he does the work, confronts his fears, and becomes capable of the intimacy he desired but feared. But you cannot count on that possibility. You cannot put your life on hold, hoping he'll change. You must make your choices based on who he is now, not on who he might become. If you choose to wait, to give time, to remain open, do it consciously, with clear boundaries and an end date. Not in passive hope, but in active choice. I choose to remain open for X months while he does his work, but after that, I must care for myself. If you choose to leave, do it with compassion for him and for yourself. You're not abandoning someone difficult. You're choosing yourself. You're honoring your own worth and your own needs. Jung's final wisdom. Jung taught us that we cannot save others from their own psychological process. Each person must traverse their own dark night, confront their own shadows, make their own journey of individuation. The deepest love sometimes isn't staying and enduring. It's leaving with love, thus creating the conditions that might ultimately catalyze his change. Your departure may be exactly the catalyst he needs to confront what he's fighting, or perhaps not, and that must be acceptable too. You cannot control his journey, you can only honor yours, so observe these 8 signs with clarity, understand with compassion, but decide with wisdom. Your life is precious, your heart is precious, your time is precious. Don't waste them hoping that someone will one day stop fighting what they truly feel. Sometimes the greatest act of love, for him and for yourself, is to free both of you from this exhausting dance and trust that what is truly meant to be will find its way, and what isn't will free you for something better. You deserve to be chosen without a fight. You deserve to be loved without resistance. You deserve someone who sees your worth and isn't afraid to acknowledge it. And if this man cannot be that for you now, perhaps the most important lesson he teaches you is to value yourself enough to wait for someone who can.